I believe that the lecture and the topics that Mary touched on could not have come at a more opportune moment to remind us that our friends who were with us during the struggle continue to watch our progress as we consolidate the democracy. And her words of wisdom are really an alert to us as South Africans to raise the bar again to ensure that the ideals of our constitutional democracy, the view that we had then, the vision we had of a South Africa united in its diversity, prosperous, and giving opportunities to every person to develop their talents, must become the South Africa of today.
Afterwards, then you spoke about the issues of demobilization of society. Just tell me a little bit about what it is that you thinking about when you're talking about the mobilization of society so that people are set their rights.
Let's go back to 1994.
Yeah.
We got to 1994 because of citizen activism against apartheid. Even during the negotiations, South African citizens remained on the alert to make sure that there was no stalling. Once we voted in the new government, we changed gears from being active citizens to becoming subjects of the post-apartheid government. And this was fueled by a very well-intentioned focus by the ANC government under President Mandela to deliver services to people. We will build you houses. We will give you free education. We will do. So in a sense, the activist citizen who secured freedom took the back seat, was told to wait. And it is this changing of gears from activism to passive waiting for government to do things for us that changed the dynamic between the leaders and the people. And I think this happened because we all did not understand what it means to be a citizen of a constitutional democracy. We didn't understand that we needed very active citizen education for everybody, including the leaders, about how do we conduct ourselves, because South Africa has never had a democracy. So even white people who used to vote did exactly what we did post-94. You vote in leaders, you don't make them accountable, you don't watch their performance, and then you get back to voting for them again at the next election. We need to have civic education. And the interesting thing is, established European countries have active civic education from early childhood development entities. So children in the creches, in the grade R's, let alone in primary school, high school, and so on, all get to understand what it means to be a citizen. You don't litter, you don't break things, you don't do graffiti on the walls of your entitlement, your commonwealth. And that's what we need in this country.
Let's just, because some people say, for instance, part of it is a process issue. Part of it is a electoral process issue, that we can't hold our leaders accountable simply because we don't necessarily choose them. They're chosen by political parties.
I agree. But why did we allow successive governments to break the agreement which was reached at the negotiation table that for the first election, we will do what we did then, which was purely proportional representation and party lists. We were supposed to then change that electoral clause to a more appropriate mixed constituency and proportional representation so that the voice of the citizen could be heard. I haven't heard people marching to make sure that that promise was fulfilled. So part of the education for citizens to assert their right has to include getting them to be aware of the steps they should make sure that those steps are taken to enable us to have that voice of citizens in the right way, given the right weight. So in my view, between now and 2014, we as citizens of South Africa ought to be mobilizing every citizen to say, make your vote count. So you only give votes to those parties or those representatives who are putting themselves out there who are committed, and they have to commit in writing that they will change that electoral clause to a more appropriate electoral system.
But also in South Africa, the other complication, as far as analysts are concerned, is because the election is very emotional. It's about the past. It's about saying, well, we know what has happened in this country in the past, and we cannot risk voting for people who may bring back what we've experienced in the past before.
Well, that is the politics as the art of the possible. It's very easy to have people retain or keep themselves in power by using fear. Now, if you look at the constitutional democratic order we have, there is no way anybody can bring back the past. So it's the same thing in the past. It was soit gevaar, now is wet gevaar. We have to be grown up. We are now 18 years old as a democracy, and stop focusing on scaremongering and start making the choices that are appropriate. We need to look at whose ideas are really the ideas that can get us out of the many, many challenges that we face. But the beauty of the challenges we face is that within them are the solutions, the opportunities. Whether you're looking at unemployment, you can address the unemployment by addressing the energy source, which is embedded in our youth, amongst whom unemployment is 72%. Now, if you just turn that around and look at those young people as a generative force, talented, full of energy, and you say, how do we unskill them and expose them to the workplace so that they can be the engine of development of our economy and thereby create a higher growth rate that will deliver more jobs, more opportunities, and a more vibrant economy. Whether you're looking at housing, where we have failed dismally, because, again, the idea of delivering a house. In my culture, you are not a man or a woman if you are not able to provide your own housing for your own housing needs. Now, this doesn't mean that Mamphela must build her own house personally, but there are many people in rural areas who build fabulous traditional houses. Why couldn't we develop a system which allows them to bring those talents, those assets to the table with government subsidies, and we could get the big construction companies train young people to work alongside people with this traditional knowledge to really transform our asset base as a nation by enabling people to have this platform, which in every society, a house is the primary source of capital formation.
But there was an opinion piece that you wrote for the Mail and Guardian a couple of months ago also, where perhaps in also understanding the kind of citizenry that we have in this country, you said the view of the citizen movement is that only a people numbed by woundedness would tolerate what we see in our country today. South Africans, black and white, are deeply wounded by the legacy of racism, sexism, and engineered inequality over the past 3 centuries. The question is, how do we get ourselves out of that situation of numbness, of woundedness?
You can only get out of that situation through open, very tough, but safe conversations. We have seen it in the Eastern Cape, where I'm working with colleagues in a program which we call Letsema Circle. We are using African technology in terms of how do you conduct conversations in the home, for example, where there is a family dispute, in the community where there is a big challenge, whether it's a lion that's lurking in the forest and destroying the livelihoods of people. You sit in a circle. In a circle, you are connected. In a circle, there is an even playing field. and you look one another eyeball to eyeball, and you say, what is the problem? Put the problem on the table. Now, the woundedness we have in South Africa is that in 1994, we celebrated the triumph of freedom. What we didn't do was to ask the question, given that we have had 300 years of deliberate social engineered divisions between South Africans, humiliation of the majority population, and a false sense of superiority by the minority population, how are we going to transcend this? Now, President Mandela used his force of personality to try and get us to come together, to link across the chasm that was created by this legacy. The reality is you can't use magic to link people who have been separated by a socially engineered process. You need another social process. And this time, I'm suggesting South Africa must tap into its African heritage, have these conversations. We've just completed a process with the Club of Madrid, which is a club of retired presidents across the globe, supported by the European Union, which supported the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, IDASA, and the Citizen Movement and others, to have conversations such as I'm talking about at the provincial levels, and then last week we had it at the national level. It was amazing how people were saying, as a starting point, this is the process we need to find ways anew as South Africans to work together.
The EU-funded Going African sessions, are they working?
Absolutely. And that is work which shows the potential of coalition of civil society groups, because it's IDASA, is the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, and the Citizen Movement. We are getting people who now want to take that example, that they were participants in these movements, to talk about even the issue of social cohesion that was talked about the other day. This division between black and white people, that we need to have platforms where we can embrace one another as citizens of the same country. We live here, black and white. Yes, we have superiority, inferiority complexes. We need to address them. I agree that people accept me because I'm educated and I have this profile I have, but we need to make acceptance of one another a day-to-day normal reality. And it starts at home, at the workplace, and in the wider community. If we as leaders lead by example and not just simply see poor people when we want their votes, but we see them when we embrace them as fellow citizens, this country is destined for greatness as a country united in its diversity.
Dr. Ramphele, I'm inundated with SMSs, emails, people looking for the contact details for your movement.
Yes, it is www.s-2c, or you just simply say subject number 2 citizen.co.za. You can be able to get us on Facebook, get us on Twitter, and get us on the web in whatever form and format you would like to have.